What happens when the quiet guy at work suddenly refuses to speak to any woman, yet his silence hides a secret that could change everything? We thought he was just cold or distant, but beneath that silence lies a story tangled with pain, mystery, and unexpected feelings. Now, as tensions rise and whispers fill the office, everyone's asking, is he avoiding us, or protecting himself? And what if this silence is more than just distance? What if it's the start of something no one saw coming? Stay tuned, because this isn't just an office drama, it's a story of secrets, hearts, and a truth waiting to be uncovered. You know when you work in a place where everyone just gets along? Where conversations flow, jokes are shared, and things feel normal. That's how it used to be for us, until he showed up. From day one, this guy, let's call him Mike, made it clear he wouldn't talk to any women at work. Not a single word beyond what was absolutely necessary. At first, we thought maybe he was shy or just had a rough day. But days turned into weeks, and his silence towards women became the new normal. Suddenly, it wasn't just awkward, it was a problem. We tried to brush it off at first, thinking maybe it was something personal or just a phase. But it started to affect the whole team. The easy camaraderie we once had disappeared. Meetings felt colder, the break room was quieter, and the balance of the workplace shifted. The strange thing? Mike didn't seem to have any issue talking to the men. He'd joke, chat about sports, even hang out after work with the guys, but when it came to any woman, he shut down completely. No small talk, no greetings, nothing. It made us feel invisible, and honestly, it started to feel like we were being punished for just being ourselves. What made it even worse was how things flipped around when some of us finally spoke up. Instead of getting support, we were told we were the problem, for wanting a normal coworker, for expecting basic respect, and for trying to understand why someone would choose to isolate half the team. The atmosphere became tense, and suddenly, we weren't just struggling with Mike's silence anymore. We were on the edge of something bigger, something that made us question who really had the problem. Now, the question is, why does Mike refuse to talk to any women at work? What's really going on behind that silence? And why does standing up for what feels normal make us the ones who are the problem? Stick around because this story isn't just about workplace drama, it's about respect, boundaries, and what happens when communication breaks down in ways you never expected. And trust me, the next part will reveal things that will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about being a normal coworker. The more we tried to understand Mike, the less sense it made. No one knew exactly why he acted the way he did. Some whispered about a past experience that made him wary of women, but no one had proof. Others thought maybe he just didn't know how to act around female coworkers, but his confidence with the guys said otherwise. It wasn't like he was shy or awkward, he was just selective in who he chose to engage with. And in a workplace where teamwork matters, that kind of behavior creates a divide you can't ignore. What's even stranger is how management reacted. When concerns were raised, instead of digging deeper, they seemed more interested in keeping things smooth than addressing the problem. A few managers hinted that maybe we were overreacting, that Mike had a right to his boundaries, and that forcing interaction wasn't the answer. But what about the rest of us? What about the women who felt sidelined and excluded day after day? It felt like the company was turning a blind eye, which only made tensions rise. We started noticing other subtle changes too. Some women stopped volunteering for team projects because they didn't want to deal with the cold shoulder. Others felt like they had to work twice as hard just to prove their worth when Mike was around. The mood shifted from friendly to cautious, and honestly, it felt like we were walking on eggshells. The office that used to feel like a community started feeling like a battleground. And then there were the whispered conversations, the rumors about who was taking sides, or who was causing trouble. People began choosing between keeping quiet or standing up, and the whole thing became this tangled web of discomfort and confusion. But underneath it all, we kept asking, what is really going on with Mike? Why won't he talk to any women? And how did wanting a normal coworker turn into being the problem? This isn't just a story about awkward silences or workplace drama. It's about what happens when respect and communication break down in a place where you spend most of your day. And as things spiral, one thing is clear: this is far from over. As days went by, the tension in the office wasn't just a background hum, it became impossible to ignore. People started picking sides, whether they realized it or not. Some of the men defended Mike, saying he had his reasons, and that maybe the women were just too sensitive. Others, especially the women, felt hurt and frustrated, caught in a situation that shouldn't be so complicated in a professional environment. The whole thing spilled over into casual conversations, making break times uncomfortable and team projects awkward. I remember one particular moment that made things hit a new low. During a group meeting, a female coworker tried to include Mike in a discussion, but he shut her down with a sharp, "I don't talk to women at work." The room went silent, and you could feel the tension spike. Some people looked away, others exchanged uneasy glances, but no one said anything. That silence was louder than any argument. It was a clear line drawn in the sand, and crossing it felt risky. What made it even more complicated was how this affected our work. Collaboration suffered, ideas weren't shared openly, and the energy in the office shifted from cooperative to defensive. A few coworkers who had once been friends now barely spoke unless absolutely necessary. The problem wasn't just Mike anymore, it was how his behavior was tearing the team apart. Behind the scenes, whispers started about possible HR involvement, but nothing concrete happened. Some feared raising the issue would only make things worse or paint them as troublemakers. Meanwhile, Mike stayed silent about why he acted this way, refusing to explain or even acknowledge the growing divide. It felt like everyone was waiting for something to break, but no one knew when or how. This wasn't just about one man refusing to talk to women, it was about what happens when respect disappears and people start feeling isolated where they should feel safe. And as the days dragged on, one thing became painfully clear: the real problem wasn't just Mike's silence, but what it revealed about us all. The tension in the office reached a boiling point one afternoon when a big project deadline was looming, and everyone needed to be on the same page. But Mike's refusal to communicate with half the team made that impossible. During a critical meeting, tempers flared. A few women voiced their frustration, tired of being ignored and shut out, while some men tried to defend Mike's right to keep his distance. The room felt like it was about to explode. What no one expected was when Mike finally spoke up, not to explain himself, but to accuse those who complained of creating a hostile environment. Suddenly, the narrative flipped. We were the problem, the ones stirring conflict by asking for basic respect and normal communication. It felt like a slap in the face, turning what had been a quiet divide into an all-out war of words and accusations. The fragile peace shattered, and the whole office seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the fallout. Outside of meetings, whispers turned into open discussions. Some coworkers avoided Mike altogether, while others tried to mediate, hoping to find some middle ground. But every attempt seemed to make things worse. The trust that once existed was breaking down fast. People started to question whether it was even possible to work together again, or if this would be the moment everything fell apart. And then came the day when Mike's silence became too loud to ignore. A confrontation happened, a meeting with management where emotions ran high, voices were raised, and sides were clearly drawn. Rumors started swirling about what was said behind closed doors, about who took responsibility and who refused to budge. The question hanging in the air was simple but heavy: how do you fix something when one person refuses to even try? The office was on edge, every glance and every quiet moment charged with anticipation. No one knew what would happen next, but everyone felt the weight of what was about to come. This wasn't just about a coworker refusing to talk anymore, it was about the future of the whole team. The day of the final meeting arrived, and the entire office felt the weight of what was to come. Management gathered us all in the conference room, promising to address the growing conflict head-on. Mike sat at the far end of the table, his usual silence replaced by a tense, unreadable expression. For the first time, it felt like the moment where things would either break apart completely or start to heal. Mike finally spoke, quietly but with steady resolve. He shared pieces of his story, how years ago, he had been through a difficult experience that shaped his view of women in the workplace, leaving him wary and distant. It wasn't about disrespect or discrimination, but about his own pain and fear. Hearing this brought a heavy silence over the room. Suddenly, the silence that had been so frustrating made a different kind of sense. It wasn't about ignoring anyone, it was about protecting himself in the only way he knew how. Management listened carefully and announced new steps to support everyone. They planned sensitivity workshops, offered counseling for Mike and the team, and committed to rebuilding trust. There was relief in the room, but also a sense that healing would take time. The unspoken truth was that normal wouldn't happen overnight. Just as it seemed the storm was finally settling, an unexpected twist hit. A fellow coworker quietly revealed that Mike's behavior wasn't just about his past, there had also been misunderstandings from others that made things worse. Some men had unknowingly contributed by excluding or dismissing the women, which only fueled the tension and made Mike's silence more complicated than anyone realized. This revelation shifted the whole perspective again. It wasn't just Mike or the women, it was a deeper, tangled problem involving the entire team and how they interacted. Suddenly, the solution wasn't just about one person changing, but about everyone stepping up to create a respectful, understanding workplace. As the meeting ended, the office felt different, still fragile, but with a new sense of hope. The path forward wasn't clear, but one thing was certain, this story was far from over, and how we chose to move forward would shape everything. After that meeting, things in the office slowly began to change, but it wasn't magic or overnight fixes, it was real work from everyone involved. Mike made efforts to open up, sometimes awkwardly, sometimes hesitantly, but it was clear he wanted to move past the walls he'd built. At the same time, the rest of us started to see things from a new perspective, recognizing that respect isn't just about rules, it's about understanding people's stories and being patient with the struggles they bring to work. The company followed through on their promises. Sensitivity training helped break down some of the barriers, and counseling offered a safe space for those who needed to process everything that had happened. More than that, there was a new culture starting to form, one where open communication was encouraged and differences weren't ignored or judged, but respected. Looking back, the situation was uncomfortable and complicated, but it forced all of us to reflect on what it really means to be a good coworker. It showed that sometimes, problems aren't as simple as they seem on the surface. They're tangled with personal histories, misunderstandings, and unspoken feelings that affect how we relate to one another. Wanting a normal coworker isn't just about expecting easy conversation or friendliness, it's about wanting respect, inclusion, and a workplace where everyone feels valued. In the end, the biggest lesson wasn't about Mike or any one person. It was about how a team responds when things get tough. We learned that silence can speak louder than words, but it takes courage to listen. It takes effort to bridge divides. And sometimes, the most normal thing we can ask for is kindness. The office isn't perfect now, and some days still feel hard. But the conversation has started, and that's where real change begins. This story isn't just about one man who refused to talk to women at work. It's about all of us, and the ways we can come together when respect feels like the most important work of all.